Good morning. This is my special education interview, Module 3 for Special Ed for Leaders. And I'm April Levitt. For the first question, we asked about child find procedures. The paraprofessional wasn't sure what that was. The special ed teacher, as well as the administrator, both indicated that that was something that preschool used and that they didn't use it. Both of them were kindergarten through 5th grade. The most challenging part of their role in regards to special education, the para talked about dealing with behaviors. They deal with the kids and work with them many times one-on-one. So those behaviors, you never know what they're going to get, is what they indicated. The special ed talked about planning for all of the students that they have. Something that I was shocked about was those 15 lessons a day that she had to plan for. The administrator talked about that she's very involved in the special ed, and many administrators indicate that that's the challenging piece of it, and she didn't find that as much challenging as many others that she's heard. The most challenging part that she feels is just making sure that she's helping the staff meet all of their students' needs. The most rewarding part of the job, all of them indicated those light bulb moments. They talked about how the kids, they loved watching them meet their goals, do something when they didn't realize that they could do it, and the kids get excited about that and seeing their excitement. And the administrator even talked about how the parents also see those light bulb moments and realize, wow, they can do more than what they thought that they could do, and helping the parents realize that. The advice on supervision of special education staff, including para, speech, path. The administrator talked about being visible, making sure that you're visible, that you're available to all of the staff to ensure that the growth is happening and the IEP is being met. And it was interesting that the para and the SPED, and really even the administrator, they all talked about being available, open communication, trying hard to find ways to be able to check in with each other, because we know everyone is so busy and running around doing all of the things that these teachers and paras and administrators need to do. It's hard to find the time to communicate and check in. And so they all talked about those check-ins and touching base with one another. How do you work effectively with parents of special needs children? The special ed teacher talked about making more positive phone calls than not positive phone calls. The special ed teacher that I interviewed mostly works with a lot of behaviors, and so her answers many times are directed towards those behaviors. And so a lot of times, even as a teacher, you're making these phone calls home and you're focused on the negative. So she really tries hard to make positive phone calls home. She also noted that she wouldn't call every time that something happened, because then it gets overwhelming to the parents, and the parents start ignoring the calls, or they don't need to know all the little tattle things. It's only the things that are big that she would call on. The administrator talked about how she's been on the other side. She has a child herself in special education, so she understands what it's like to be on the other side. So it helps her be a better administrator for special education parents and children. So she always wants to make sure that they understand the terminology, that they're part of the team when everyone is getting together to determine what is the best for that child. She wants to make sure that they feel that they are a part of that and their voice counts. And the paraprofessional doesn't really have any interaction with the parents at all. How do you work with regular teachers with students with special needs? The special education teacher talked about how every teacher is different, every child is different, and so the way they work with the teachers varies depending on all of those things. They have check-ins, they communicate, they also have the teachers have long-term plans, and so they really work together at trying to figure out what is the best route to teach those kids. They'll use the curriculum and kind of build upon whatever it is that the teacher is teaching currently within the classroom. The administrator talked about making sure that all of the students are met, that the teachers can't get frustrated or lose hope with those special ed students, that they can't just pass them off to the special ed teacher. They also have a responsibility and do everything that they possibly can to meet those students' needs within their classroom. She also talked about pairing up with the gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher, making sure that they're able to be collaborative about the students. The paraprofessional talked about how the teachers give them lessons for them to teach while they're in the classroom. And so it's nice so that they will have the lessons kind of laid out. Many times they're very similar so that they have an idea of what they're doing, since they hit so many different classrooms. But once they hit those classrooms for a period of time, they get to know that teacher and those expectations, and are able to walk in, build that, and have that relationship with those students and be able to work with them. What advice do you have for a first-year administrator? The special ed, the biggest thing she talked about was support. She needed support from the principal. And again, she worked with behaviors, so she particularly talked about behaviors. She talked about how she doesn't call the administrator unless it's serious. And if she's calling the principal, she needs her help. And so to take it seriously, make sure that you're helping and supporting the special ed teachers, and make sure that you have a time to collaborate about the students so that they can problem solve and communicate what's going on with that student at that time. She also talked about making sure that the principal is knowledgeable about the laws, make sure that she knows what people can possibly get in trouble for versus not in trouble, the things that they're able to do within the school legally. The administrator also talked about the laws, making sure that first year administrator understands that there's some serious legal issues that they can get involved in if they are not privy to all of those laws. Helping, and then she also talked about how the special ed and the general ed teachers, they need to build relationships, and making sure that they're helping to monitor the children or the students that they have. If the special ed teacher and the general ed teacher don't have a relationship, then there can be a lot of friction, a lot of frustration between those two. And so helping to cultivate those relationships is important. With the paraprofessional, just talked about approachability, making sure that she understands and builds a relationship with the paras. We have a lot of turnover with paraprofessionals within our building, as well as I think many buildings have that. And so she talked about understanding how that turnover makes it hard for the administrator or administrators to get to know the paraprofessionals, but she wanted to make sure that they did that and communicated with them so that they built that relationship. How do you describe the role of a special education teacher and the building principal? So when we talked about this, we talked about the role of this special ed, the role of the principal, and then kind of them together in regards to special education. So this special education teacher talked about her role is to support the students and the general ed teacher for them to be successful within the classroom. She talked about how the principal's role is to support both the special ed and the general education teacher. And together, all of them, the special ed teacher, the general ed teacher, and the principal, all create an environment that is a good learning environment for all students, but particularly those special ed students. The administrator talked a lot about how the special ed teachers, they have to know the IEPs. They need to know every one of their students, all of their IEPs, need to know them inside and out to make sure that their needs are being met. Making sure that they're gathering information, that they're looking at those goals and making sure that the goals are being met. And if they're not being met, what accommodations can be adjusted, and make sure that they are put in the IEP and also follow the laws. The para just talked about how everyone needs to work together. If nobody works together, it's not conducive environment for students. So we all need to make sure that we're working together. What characteristics do you seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education? The special ed teacher talked about the laws, making sure administrators know those laws and sign it out. She also talked about making sure that they care, and actually told some stories about previous schools that she worked at, previous administrators that she worked under that didn't really care about those special education students and used verbiage that was very derogatory and didn't care about them and didn't want them in the general ed classroom or in assemblies and things because of the disruption that they might cause. And so it's very hurtful, is what she talked about. So making sure that they actually care and want the best for them and that they're approachable. The administrator talked about the equality. So special education students a lot of times get exceptions within buildings. And she said that's not okay. They might get accommodations, but the ultimate responsibility, the ultimate expectation is the same for all students. How they get to that expectation might be different. So they have work that they need to get done, or they have expectations or rules that they must follow. The work that gets done might be different than other students, but the work still must get done. That's the expectation. And so not giving those students the expectations, the accountability, and as they grow, as they get further in their life, the rules of society is the same for everyone. So making sure that they understand that and help them cope and be able to follow those expectations. The para talked about that aspiring administrators must be knowledgeable of the needs, and they should be caring towards all of the special education students. So as a reflection and evaluation and projection, as I reflected on all of their answers, I thought it was interesting that so many of them were the same. When we talked about the things that were most challenging, they were a little different, but all of them talked about meeting the needs. What was the most rewarding? They all talked about that light bulb moment. Communication was the advice that they all gave. So I felt within my building, which was where I did my interview, I felt that it was really interesting. A lot of them were on the same page. I felt like my principal has done a really nice job at trying to get everyone together and communicating and getting people on the same page. The relationship and the laws was a big one. So for my projection, my evaluation of myself is I don't really understand or know a lot of the laws of special education. And so for my projection, something that I would need to do before I became an administrator is learn those laws, is to make sure that I understand the things that I need to do in order to be knowledgeable of those laws, connect with people that understand and know those laws so that I can be successful and help the special education students that need help. Thank you. I look forward to looking and watching some of your videos and what a learning experience this was.